Now what? I'm one of the clones killed by Jay, and because I died a virgin, I reincarnated as a wizard! That doesn't make any sense, least of all because we aren't cloned from a virgin. The world I reincarnated in was a fantasy world of wondrous things that you've never seen before! Elves, orcs, and dwarves? How did you know? Lucky guess. Well, anyway, I was reincarnated as a wizard in that world, and I was gifted with the power to treat the world as a video game. Behold! Whoa! I mean, that's cool and all, but it doesn't seem very practical. What? What do you mean? I mean, okay, yeah, that's my health bar, but I mean, I still die in like one bullet. Jay, care to demonstrate?
Just a little off the top.
Give me a break, a little escape. I am so tired of being me. I wanna be free, I wanna be new and different. Anything I'm not.
Hello, I'm Plutoburns, and welcome to Eagleland. It's been a while. I got a life. But we're back, and here to talk about something that is becoming scary common. Dying and reincarnating in a fantasy world with video game powers. I'm thinking we should blame this particular trend on Sword Art Online, but most of the members of this subgenre cut out the middleman of the Matrix ripoff and just have the hero in a fantasy land for some arbitrary reason. Such luminaries include world customized creator, Overlord, Kumo Desu ga Nanika, and today's topic, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. This one immediately starts off a little different from its brethren by establishing a bit of character for the MC. MC dies by saving his coworker from getting stabbed, and in his dying breath asks that his PC data be wiped. So we do have some pre-established gallantry, as well as a man who has his priorities in order right before his death. As he lays dying, he reflects on the fact that he never got around to having sex. And colloquially, if you die a virgin in Japan, you become a wizard. And as he lays dying, he starts hearing voices saying he's acquired the unique skills of Predator and Great Sage. Those are some pretty dry death hallucinations there, fella. Then he wakes up in complete darkness because he's a slime now, and apparently slimes don't have eyes, no matter what Akira Toriyama says. And now we enter into the level grinding phase of the story where the hero figures out what their powers are and learns new ways of applying them to this world. Except, this story kind of rushes through it. Which, if you're into those training montages, is kind of a bummer. But if you're the kind of person who wishes the story would just get to the interesting stuff, then it's a plus. And then adding that all up, we get wheatgrass. Who did these calculations? Now, part of the reason this level up phase is so short may be because of Slimer's encounter with the great dragon Veldora. After getting a crash course on using magic sense to see, Slimeball can finally see the great dragon Veldora, who's been sealed in this cave for 300 years. They become fast friends, mostly because Veldora is bored out of his mind after being stuck in this cave for so long. Iron Slime wants to get him out of here, but unfortunately the only way to do that is to absorb Veldora with his Predator skill into his stomach of holding. But before that, the two monsters name each other. In this world, monsters don't have personal names, and being granted a name gives you a power-up based on how powerful the person naming you was. So maybe getting named by one of the all-powerful dragons has something to do with how powerful Slime Goodbody got. Probably. I'd bet my life on it.
And you bet your life.
So the newly minted Rimuro sneaks out of the door left open by the heroes sent to check on where the fuck did the crazy powerful dragon disappear to. Then he stumbles into a turf war between some dire wolves and goblins. After negotiating peace, Rimuro becomes village leader of the newly combined tribes. And then he begins a new tradition for this manga, naming every single fucking monster that joins his tribe! And that's enough plot recap. Now I just want to talk about the things that make me like this one over other similar video game-themed fantasy stories. And it's pretty straightforward in this case. This story is very monster-centric. Probably the most interesting element of sci-fi or fantasy is watching entirely different species or races try and reach some form of peace. But in most fantasy stories, it's just humans, dwarves, and elves, with the other races just being mindless monsters to kill. This is a long-standing pet peeve of mine, and I lay the blame squarely on Tolkien and his lazy imitators. This story prominently features goblins, oni, direwolves, lizardmen, and orcs, all serving a slime lord. Dwarves, elves, and humans exist, but at this point in the story, they are barely seen. So we get to watch the creation of a monster society, independent of any human influence, and it's actually really damn fun. The oni are the elite guard, the goblins are the general citizenry, and the direwolves are like sentient horses. And Rimuro is a good ruler. He's mostly hands-off, preferring to set policy and trust the named characters to act it out. He also sets up an early policy to not kill humans, which his subjects are kinda confused by, but he justifies it by saying that humans way outnumber them, so it's probably best to stay on their good side.
Oh, and at one point he encounters the hero who sealed Veldora away, and then on her deathbed he absorbs her body. They're setting stuff up with her, but for now it's pretty boring. Even when he transforms into her body and doesn't have any genitals because he's a slime.
The orcs are brought into the fold after an enormous horde of them rush the Lizard Kingdom. But rather than the usual, they just evil approach, it's shown that the orcs are both desperate for food and manipulated by some shadowy wizard dude who named the orc leader and upgraded him to a ravenous destructive form. But in keeping with the monsters aren't evil theme, we get a flashback showing the orc leader cutting off his own arm to feed some starving children.
Hey Doc, could we use the dead clones as food?
Why would you want to do that? We have a fridge with food in it!
Yeah, obviously we don't need to, but say we were trapped on a desert island.
You need to shut up now!
The Orc War leads me into a problem I have with the manga. The battles aren't great. Some of the skirmishes are pretty good, but Rimuro is an OP son of a bitch! He's got all the powers of the monsters he's absorbed, and is just dripping with magical energy. And worst comes to worst, he can just swallow someone into his stomach of holding. And he's not even particularly good with all those monster powers he's got, since he's got way more powers than he's ever bothered to play around with. He's a bit like a police department that was given military-grade weapons.
Topical!
Also, the manga is just lousy with pointless fan service. After picking up a dwarf craftsman for the town, Arrow Slime visits an elf host club and gets just smothered with titties. Just tits everywhere and all over the place. Throughout the manga, Slimy Ball will give speeches and have conversations while sat on a woman's lap, with her tits resting on him. And no one says, "Hey boss, can we do this without the secondary sexual characteristics draped all over your face?"
I'm not opposed to fan service on principle, but you gotta know how to weave it into the story. Don't just shove it in any old way, regardless of context or story reasons, because you think it's a thing you have to have because it's popular. Alright, looks like my cucumber souffle is just about ready. Now I just gotta find somewhere to put all these Cheetos.
But other than that, manga's pretty good. You get a real sense of an actual world outside of the limited scope we've currently seen. The characters work for their roles, and if you've been hankering for a monster-centric city construction fantasy, your prayers have been answered. And don't pretend that isn't a fantasy. People love the idea of being the villain in a goofy fantasy world. Just look at Dungeon Keeper.
Next time I want to talk about another fantasy video gamey manga that I'm actually a bug fan of. Hint, hint. But yeah, that time I wrote a horrible title for a slime manga was written by someone going by the name of Fuse, who wrote the original light novel that the manga is based on. The artist has done a couple other things, which seem like they were relatively popular in Japan, but you've probably never heard of them. Till next time, I'm Plutoburns, and this has been Eagleland. Oh.